I am coming to you live from the Monkeypod Worldwide headquarters. But I want to share a quick story, a quick analogy, and I want to address a common myth or misconception that I see perpetuated throughout the Infusionsoft user community, throughout our ecosystem. Okay, so the backstory here, just so that we're all on the same page, is I am currently going through a course. I'm currently going through a membership course. It's called Tribe, from Stu McLaren, one of the former founders of Wishlist Member. And the basic idea of this course is like building your membership community. It covers, getting clear on your purpose. It covers getting clear on your audience. It covers getting clear on like the success path, the journey you guide your customers down and your members down, and the progression and evolution that they should expect to experience. It also talks about marketing and marketing tactics and lessons in pricing. And I don't know, I have a few weeks left in the course. It's been awesome, but that's not the point. The point is that there is a community of people going through this course, a couple thousand of us actually, who are progressing through the content at the same time. And he has a Facebook group where the tribers, the people experiencing this course, can ask questions, can communicate, or can network with one another, can support one another, can share victories, and give their thoughts and stuff about their realizations and their light bulb moments throughout the course. So in the course of one of the threads in this Facebook group earlier today, I interacted with this guy, Nick, who is also an Infusionsoft user, and that was the topic of the thread. It started as a shout out to me from a brand new OG member, Rachel, who is also a triber. So thanks for the shout out, Rachel. But because the topic was Infusionsoft and that she mentioned what the membership is for, several people chimed in who were interested in that, or who use Infusionsoft, or who had questions about Infusionsoft. And one of the guys, Nick, made a remark. He commented, and then I commented, and then he replied. He said, honestly, I'm not using it to its fullest extent. He's talking about Infusionsoft. He said, I'm not using Infusionsoft to its fullest extent. And I replied to him, and I said, well, let me let you in on a little secret. No one is. And then I went on to explain, and as I typed out my reply to him, it occurred to me that I should share this thought with everyone, because I get pretty worked up when people say, like, oh, I'm only using 10% of Infusionsoft. Or, actually, that's not true. I get a little worked up when people say things like that. I'm only using 10%, or I'm only using 20%, or I'm only using 25%. But I get really upset. I get actually a little perturbed when Infusionsoft consultants, Infusionsoft experts, Infusionsoft certified partners, when people or agencies who support Infusionsoft users, when they advertise on that, when they use that as like a hook, when they say, tired of only using X% of Infusionsoft, right? And I get the psychology behind it. I get the strategy behind positioning it that way, is because if you have this tool and you're only using X% of the tool, then there is, whatever, 100 minus X percentage remaining that presumably, ostensibly, you're missing out on. And so I understand that, and I get the reasoning behind it. I get the rationale behind positioning it that way, behind advertising it that way. But there's a big flaw. I think there is a big flaw in that, and here is where the myth comes into play. So if you say, hey, you're only using 10% of Infusionsoft, or whatever the percentage is, 20%, 30%, if you say you're only using that percent, the inherent assumption behind a claim like that is that you should be using 100%. And so you're missing out on whatever the remainder is. But I think that's BS, because I don't know anyone who uses 100% of Infusionsoft, or anyone who should use 100% of Infusionsoft. The truth is, Infusionsoft is a powerful and robust platform, but it wasn't built for you. It wasn't built for me. It wasn't built for any single individual. It was built for the collective body of small business owners around the world, across these industries, right? So there's more to Infusionsoft than any one user needs. Using 100% of the app, using 100% of Infusionsoft is a I think, an unrealistic goal. And I think you're just going to set yourself up for frustration if you try to use 100%, because you're going to find yourself, clicking on things you don't need. You're going to find yourself setting up features just to say you use that feature, when the truth is, I think your relationship to the software, and I'm using Infusionsoft as an example, but really this is any tool you use or any software you use, the goal shouldn't be to use it 100% or to use 100% of it. The goal should be to figure out what is 100%, what does Greg Jenkins need, and how do I do 100% of that? Or what does Monkeypod Marketing need, and how do I do 100% of that? Or what does your business need from this software? Not what can the software do, what does your business need from it, and how do we do those things? That's the way that I feel about it, and I think that it's a small shift in thinking, but it is an important one. Here's an example. I grew up in the Midwest, in Michigan specifically, but in Sandusky, Ohio, there is an amusement park called Cedar Point. And this was the closest amusement park for us, so it was where we went, multiple times throughout my childhood and adolescence and even young adulthood. I didn't know it at the time, but I guess Cedar Point is pretty well known, across the country as being this roller coaster haven. And for roller coaster junkies around the world, a lot of them know Cedar Point because at various times it has held the highest or the fastest or whatever records for different roller coasters. Okay, but the point is, when you go to Cedar Point, the objective isn't to ride every roller coaster and play every game and eat at every vendor, because that's not realistic. Not everything they have is for you. And if you're a roller coaster aficionado, you're actually, you wouldn't be interested in the little spinny teacup one, right? Or the kids roller coasters. In fact, you're probably not allowed on those. And if you're a small child, you're not allowed on the faster, bigger, scarier, adult roller coasters, right? So there is quite literally more in this theme park than anyone can consume individually. And so what I'm getting at is, rather than focusing on how do I, ride all of these rides and play all of these games and eat at all of these vendors or shop at all of these souvenir stands, it's to create the experience that will fill your day, right? What is it that I want out of this? What experience do I need to create that justifies what I spent to go into this park? So I don't know how much Cedar Point costs, but let's say it's $100. What agenda or itinerary do I need to put together that gives me $100 worth of enjoyment? And that's your ROI. That's your break-even point, right? And then when you get to that point, what else can you do that far exceeds the value, right? And the same thing is true for Infusionsoft, right? It's not just about how do I use all the features? It is about what do I need to justify the monthly investment I make in this software. What do I need? Either in time savings, in efficiencies, in simplifying the workload for my team, in brand new revenue, or in any of the other ways that Infusionsoft and softwares like it can pay a dividend or an ROI. So once you get to that point, once you know where that break-even point is, anything else you do is icing on the cake. So let's say you go to Cedar Point for a full day, but at 1 p.m. you already feel like you got your money's worth. Well, the rest of your day, the rest of the time you spend there is going to be the icing on the cake. That is where the excess comes in, right? And that's fine. It's great if the tools we use and the softwares we use give you more value than you spend on them, right? That's obviously the goal. But there's a difference between measuring it against your own personal barometer for where that 100% mark is and measuring it against A, what the software is capable of, or B, how other people are using it. Let's go back to the Cedar Point analogy, right? So if you leave Cedar Point at whatever time the park closes, let's say it's 7 or 8 p.m., and you're walking out with a group of people, let's say you're walking out with 10 people and they all had a great day. Well, one person's day might look very different from the next, and from yours. the recipe to have a good day at Cedar Point isn't riding 100% of the rides and playing 100% of the games. It just doesn't work that way, right? And so similarly, comparing the way you use Infusionsoft to how other people use Infusionsoft is not necessarily healthy either, because their needs are different. Their appetite for Infusionsoft or for roller coasters is different. Now here is where this flips a little bit. If you go with a good friend of yours who also loves roller coasters the exact same way you do, yeah, it's okay to follow their lead and to ride the rides they ride and to mimic what they do, because you trust they've done this before, and the way that they create a good experience would also create a good experience for you. So if you follow somebody who is in a similar space and you want to use Infusionsoft the way that they use Infusionsoft, that's great. That is a recipe or a formula for finding it valuable, for paying an ROI. There's no reason you can't mimic what other people are doing, but I guess the point of this, and the myth I wanted to bust, is that you don't need to use 100% of the software. What you need to do is figure out what 100% looks like for you and for your business, and then figure out how to do that. And anything you do beyond that is icing on the cake, and that's fine. But if you set out trying to use 100% of the features, I feel like you're going to be frustrated and disappointed, and that I feel like that's just a misguided goal. So I wanted to address that, because throughout our space, throughout the Infusionsoft user community and ecosystem, I keep seeing references to, well, I'm only using 20%. But what I think people are forgetting is that you may only need 25% or 30%, right? So you might be closer to your saturation point than you realize. And that can be really encouraging if you recognize that 100% is a relative term and is a personal term, and it's up to you to define what that looks like for your brand and your business, and then focusing on creating the individual path for your own success. So that's it, y'all. Thank you for tuning in.